Hey, what's going on, ladies and gentlemen? How are you feeling? How are you doing? Wait for some people to jump in here. What's going on? So, we have a really good live for everyone today, right? How to help your unhelpful thoughts. It is going to be, I'm waiting for Rachel to come now. As soon as she there, hey, oh, can't see
Hi.
me. I got to get up a little bit
I
higher.
know, same. I'm like
Hey,
scooting back. All right.
that's good. How you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Man, it's good. It's good. It feels
Good.
good. It's long overdue
I
for
know.
us to be on live. As soon as we connected, we were like, okay, we got to do a live next week. You know,
Absolutely.
the quicker the better. So
Yeah.
how you doing? How was your day?
I'm good. I had a full day,
Uh,
but a good day. No complaints. I'm good. What about you?
Yeah, it's been good, a lot of running around, ups and downs, and now finally we made it. I thought I was going to be like 5 to 10 minutes late,
Oh yeah?
but everything um was good.
Okay.
Everything was a blessing. Yeah, yeah.
Oh good. I'm happy to
That's
hear
good.
that. And
That's
here we
good.
are.
And here we are,
Yes.
to get some information to text some popped up. Got it. Yep, just to give some information out, help people with their unhelpful thoughts
Yes.
and their challenging thoughts. And I think that was the perfect topic for this discussion. And before we even get into it, let everyone know, our audience, who you are, what you do, and why you're here.
Great. So first, thank you so much for having me. I'm
Hmm.
so excited to be here with everybody tonight. I'm Dr. Rachel Goldman. I'm a clinical psychologist in New York City, specializing in health and wellness, and that encompasses a lot of different things, but really my specialties are in health behavior change, cognitive behavioral therapy, which we can talk more about also, as well as stress management and the treatment of obesity. So, and obviously with everything going on in the world right now, everybody is stressed, and we all have some unhelpful thoughts. So I'm
Hmm.
happy that I can be able to share this information because I really do believe that there's just small little
Hmm.
changes that we can all make to kind of just live happier and healthier lives.
Yeah, yeah. And the thing about it is, like, I help people, get over breakups, go from brokenness to wholeness. And I help people with their unhelpful thoughts, right? But
Right.
I only know so much. So that's why it's awesome to get an expert, a doctor on here to let you guys know what I'm saying is true, right? Or what I'm
Or
saying
not, no,
makes
I'm
some
kidding.
sense, or what I'm saying makes some kind of sense.
Right.
So it's always good to have a professional, someone who studied this, they live this. And looking by your page, and I want everybody to follow you,
Thank you.
is the fact that what you say is so, powerful, and it could change your life if applied, in the right way. And this goes for breakups too. It goes for life. It goes for pandemic. And I seen a great video that you made with the pandemic, and it was amazing. And people really need this, right? They really need this.
Yeah.
So a little bit about me for your followers who
Yes.
joined. My name is Keishorne Scott. I'm a relationship coach, heartbreak and breakup, specifically. I help men and women transition from brokenness to wholeness, just so they can experience real love and just live their best life and find a true identity out of all that mess and chaos we call breakup or divorce that we
Yeah.
have. Yeah, so we have some few questions for everyone today that we're going to just dive right into, and we can really elevate it. Um, so, the first question we have tonight for Dr. Rachel is, what are some examples of unhelpful thoughts?
Right. Such a good question. And whenever I talk about unhelpful thoughts, I think it's really important to talk about what we call cognitive distortions. So in cognitive behavioral therapy, which is CBT, we talk about cognitive distortions, which are automatic thoughts that we all have. So I want to first start by saying that we all have them. So if I mention some unhelpful thoughts, then you might be like, oh no, I do that, I think that. It's normal, it's common. So we all have these automatic thoughts, which are not necessarily true. It's like our brain's first thought. It's the first thought that comes up. It's our brain's way, like the first thing that happens. And an example would be, and there's a list of them, but an example would be like a should statement. Like I should be dating somebody, for instance, or I should be married by this age, or another example is an all or nothing thought. That's also a cognitive distortion, which could be like, I always maybe date the wrong people, right? Or I'm never going to find love again. You know, like those are not helpful thoughts. And the reason they're not helpful is because if we think for a moment, like if we just pause and think, how does that thought make me feel? The thought is going to make us feel a certain way, which is then going to make us behave in a certain way. And if I were to say, like, I'm never going to find love, like, that's not very helpful. That doesn't make me feel good. Exactly. Right. Yeah. So that's why they're unhelpful. And those are just some examples. But, I mean, there's so many thoughts that we could have that, you know, would be examples like that. But if we think of, like, those should statements, those must statements, the all or nothing, another common kind of distortion is labeling. So, like, I'm a failure. I'm something. You know, just not helpful. We're telling ourselves something that's not necessarily true, and then we start believing it. So I think that's really important to note too, is we eventually believe what we tell ourselves, and that's obviously not helpful and not going to get us anywhere good.
Yeah, and I believe that's perfect. We do believe what we tell ourselves a lot, and a lot of it is like negative thoughts, and we tend to believe these. So if someone is going through some negative thoughts, right? They feel really bad about themselves. Matter of fact, even before that question, where do you think they come from?
Yeah, so I mean, they come from a lot of different places, but mainly they come from years ago, right? So like these automatic thoughts are thoughts that we've probably had for several years. And it could be, for instance, like even a client had said this to me today, you know, like it's like talking about weight, for instance. This client had said to me, you know, I didn't just wake up one day and like think that I was overweight or think that I was, I hate the word fat, but you know, fat. But she said, you know, I was bullied as a child and I was told that I was fat, you know, or I have another client today that actually similarly had said, you know, that she had a teacher tell her she wasn't good enough. And for years and years, she was being told she wasn't good enough. And eventually she internalized that thought. So I think it could come from an external source that then eventually we internalize because we hear it enough. You know, it could come from, you know, somebody even said from our subconscious, you know, it comes from these other places. But the problem is that they're so automatic that if we don't catch them, we're eventually going to just believe them because we keep thinking them.
So someone who's going through a breakup, right? Do you think that they can develop unhelpful thoughts from past traumas and past challenges?
Absolutely. Yeah. So I think it's important to keep in mind that everything in life is an experience. But that's how we learn. We learn from experiences. So maybe if we went through a traumatic breakup, our mind is going to jump to perhaps every relationship ends this way. Or I'm always going to be in a, you know, certain type of relationship. So yeah, we definitely learn from those experiences.
Yeah, and the thing about it too is like I strongly believe that because there's a lot of people on this live or in life who feel as if I will never find love again. I will never be happy again. I will never find Mr. Right. I'm getting too old, you know, or I'm too young, or whatever it may be, or the time will never be right. And a lot of those thoughts block you from your blessing. You know, they block you from really achieving positivity or purpose or substance. And once you think that way, everything is done. Everything is done because you already set yourself up for failure. You know, I mean, an NBA player doesn't go into a game and say, you know what, I'm going to miss every shot tonight.
And they will. Like,
exactly.
I mean, if you say it, it's gonna in a way happen. So, you know, and if we keep saying that, we're also going to be limiting, like changing our behaviors in order to make that statement the truth. So like
I like that one. Limiting. I like that.
It's so true because if we remember, our thoughts, emotions, and behaviors are linked. So if we tell ourselves, I'm never going to find love again, then we're going to change our behaviors in order to act that way. We're not going to try to find love because I've already told myself and already determined I'm not going to find love.
Yeah, that's excellent, excellent. And I hope everybody's listening to that, to Dr. Rachel. Because when you are really blocking your thoughts and these unhelpful thoughts are developing in your mind, right? I have another like sidebar question on top of that because it just came to me. Could these unhelpful thoughts develop unconsciously without you really actually, like you probably think that is normal?
Yeah. So, I mean, it's not a conscious thing that we think negatively, right? Like, it's not like I want to be a failure, so I'm going to think that I'm a failure. They do develop kind of unconsciously or subconsciously. And then that's the key, though. We have to be aware of them enough. We have to be insightful enough to be able to step away for a moment and be like, this is not helpful. So that first thought is the automatic thought, which might not be helpful. But then when we think about it, we can change it. So absolutely, like it is not a conscious decision that I'm telling myself that I'm never going to find love, for instance.
Yeah. And I think that's one of the most important things is in order to change your behavior, you really have to identify what the problem really is within yourself. And then you can implement the strategies that you help people, your clients, help and overcome these thoughts. That's perfect. That's perfect.
Yeah. Because we can't change anything if we don't know there's a problem, right? So the first step is to identify that these are unhelpful thoughts. Like I had a client today and literally I told her for our next session, all I want her to do between now and then is to just start making note of her negative thoughts. Like don't try to change them, just identify them, and that's all.
Yeah, and that's the one thing that I always tell people to do is like a thought tracker. I think I got one from therapist.com. It was a thought tracker, and it helps you track your thoughts every hour from 9 to 8. So whenever you go through something or whatever it is, jot it down because life is so fast and it's so quick and things can happen so fast, which is going to get me into the next topic of the pandemic and the challenges that a lot of people are facing with unhelpful thoughts with that is that it happens so fast that you can have like 1,000 negative, and then you will ask your clients, or I'll ask people, and I will say, hey, when did it happen? What were you doing? What triggered it? And you're like, I don't know.
And they go, I don't know.
Exactly. But once it helps you better. I'm sure it helps you when you let us know exactly when did it happen, how, because when we know this, I will know, okay, this is what you need to change. Now we can plan. So what are one of the, during the pandemic, my wife and I, we were crazy. We was going through hell, right? Because we got this 3-year-old, she's running around. We have for 3 months straight. We didn't know what to do with her. Working on the laptop or working on the computer, she's jumping on your back. She's pulling on your hair. She wants to play. And it's beautiful. Kids are amazing. But we got to get some work done or we're not going to have a roof over our head. Right.
Trust me, I get it.
So what are some things that you find people were struggling with, some challenges, some unhelpful thoughts that people were going through during the pandemic?
Yeah. So, I think at the beginning of the pandemic, we could just think of it as like our lives were completely turned upside down, right? Like our lives were completely disrupted. And for many people, what they really struggled with was finding a routine and adjusting to the new, whatever you want to call it, the new normal, whatever it is. And it's something that we can actually take and learn from for any major stressor going on in our life. Whenever there's a stressor, it takes time to adjust and we have to create a routine. It can look very different than what it did 6 months ago, but we need a routine to stay a little bit less stable, a little more grounded. And that's really important. And I think bringing up kids is such a great example because kids have a routine, right? Like when their routine is off, everything is off
it's
the
chaos.
window. Exactly.
It's chaos.
Well, but we're just like kids, right? Like we need routines also. So I think that's one thing to keep in mind. And then if you want to think about like relationships, I think something that a lot of people are struggling with is this idea of how am I ever going to date again during a pandemic, like we have masks on, we're
Virtually.
socially right, exactly. And a lot of my clients are struggling with that, you know, because maybe they didn't really like doing the apps and things like that. And now that's really the only way to meet people. So, but having those unhelpful thoughts of like, I'm never going to meet somebody because I can't go out. Or, you know, when is this ever going to end? I need to find somebody. Like a lot of people say, you know, like the clock is ticking, people are getting older. So I think that's been something they're really struggling with, which I'm sure you have lots of tips and comments about that as well.
Yeah, I mean, you hit every nail on the head, you know, with that. And a lot of people are impatient. You know, they want love now, like love is running out. You know, they want a partner now, like everybody's going to be off the face of the earth in 3 months. Like I want somebody now. I want to marry him now. I want to date him now. But patience is a virtue. I think if you have patience and you learn, because during a pandemic, you can learn so much about yourself, your likes and your dislikes, what you want out of a partner, what you want out of yourself, you know, how you can grow through certain challenges that you might be having that you don't want to bring into a relationship. If you want to heal, because a lot of people think they're healed and they feel like, okay, well, I'm healed. I'm ready to date again. You're still damaged and you're going to damage the next person that's going to come into your life. So I think that's big. So what are some things, like some people are they don't like to be inside. They don't like to be inside. So what are some, because I know there's the unhelpful thoughts, right? We can call those the negative automatic thoughts, right? Right? What are some positive replacements for those thoughts?
Yeah, so I mean, I think it depends on what that negative thought is. And that brings me to like kind of like what to do if you identify that you have these negative thoughts. And I like to start that by saying that we don't want to make the thought super positive either. Like we don't want it to be unrealistic, right? So that's going to set us up for failure as well. Like if you say, if your unhelpful thought was, I'm never going to find love, and then your helpful thought is like, I'm definitely finding love. Like, you know, yes, I would say you probably will, but we don't know when, right? So just to like be, I guess, kind of like calm that thought down a little bit to be a little more neutral, a little more realistic. So it really depends on what that negative thought is. But if a thought was, I'm never going to find love again, or I'm a failure, or I'm something, you know, I would say to think of it in a way of like, I don't know, but I'm going to try. So, you know, always go back to this idea of our thoughts, emotions, and behaviors are linked. So,
so let's play a game. Let's play a game.
Go for it. Give me a thought.
I'm gonna give you a thought. Well, Dr. Rachel, I can never find someone good in my life, and I feel like I will never find someone good. I've been trying, and you know what? There's no good people out there. Nobody is good. Every time I get into something, it's either they remind me of my ex or they do something stupid to mess it up. Like,
great. So what I would do in that situation is I would first like ask, like, how does it make you feel when you have that thought? So if I were to now reverse that to you and say, I'm never going to find love, nobody out there is good, how does that make you feel?
Bad.
Right. So, and then if it makes you feel bad, how do you act out of that feeling bad? Like, what is something that you might do on a day when you're feeling pretty bad because you just had that thought?
I would probably text my ex, or I'm probably going on social media looking for someone to fill my time or my void.
Okay. And is that helpful to you when you text your ex?
No, they were a jerk. No way.
Right. Okay. So there, we first identified that that's an unhelpful thought. So first, by kind of understanding how that thought leads to a feeling, leads to a behavior, which completely can change the course of our day, tells us if it's helpful or unhelpful. Then I say, let's examine the evidence. Where's the data that you're never going to find somebody, right? Or where's the data that nobody is good? So then maybe I would start asking questions like, okay, well, do you know anybody that's considered good? I don't like to label it either, but like, you know, that's good. Maybe it's not a potential partner for you, but we can start loosening the thought to be not so like all or nothing, like never, nobody. So we would examine the evidence. And then I would say, okay, can we find a new thought that might be a little more helpful and make you feel a little better, which then might even feel motivating to find somebody, right? Because our thoughts impact our motivation. So, but those are kind of the questions that we will learn to ask ourselves in those situations.
Yeah, I think asking, like bringing it back to themselves, but you got to be in the moment. A lot of people is hard in the moment.
Yeah.
That's why it's good, see a therapist, see a Dr. Rachel, and let someone help you navigate through those thoughts and through those feelings, because you might think that you're ready for a relationship. And this is the kind of things that I've spoken to a lot of people about. You might think that you're ready for a relationship, but you're not in a position to give or receive love, right? You might be off the fact that everybody on social media is in love, or it's holiday time, right? What season is it? Is it the same month that you and your ex got together, right? Is it the same time? So what we need to understand is that we have to position ourselves and be ready for healing. We're ready to accept. We have to know that those feelings are wrong, right? So, for what would you, what is the first step? The first step in order to unravel it. I know we touched on it before, but I wanted to go back when it was like in the beginning. You said something really good. Yeah.
Oh, did I?
Yeah. It's like you said a word about the
Okay. Well, I don't remember what I said then, but I will say that regarding what you were just saying, and in a way, this is really the first step, I would say, is to know what triggers you and to be able to anticipate.
That's what you said.
Right. So I always say, like, we want to anticipate difficult situations and then plan for them. So if you know it's a difficult time because maybe it's the month that you and your ex met, or it's a holiday or vacation, like those tend to be difficult times for people that are, by themselves or single. First, identify that this is going to be difficult, and then what can I do to help me during that time? Like some kind of distraction technique. I tell people to make plans with friends, be busy on that day. Do not sit home, especially if you still live in the same place that maybe you and your ex shared, but it's so hard. But don't just sit home and do nothing on those days, because those thoughts are going to come up very easily and very quickly. And it's going to be harder to challenge them, especially during those kind of high risk times. So first kind of know that, identify that, and then make a plan.
Yeah. And that's good. And one thing that you said, you cannot heal. I believe it's hard to heal in the same environment that your ex was in or is in, because I've spoken to many people who, when their ex is their boss at work, that they
so
meet,
hard,
and then they share children together. So this person who mentally or physically, or emotionally abuse you is the same person you have to answer to when you get to work. And if you leave that job, you're probably going to be making 50% less. You might be happy, you might be way happier, and you might be, but at the end of the day, that might be another financial strain on who you are.
Yeah.
So you always have to develop a plan of action and escape plan when you're going through those tough times, because I'm not sure, maybe you get the same kind of questions, but it's a lot of people who are in relationships with or divorced and they have children. The letting go when the child is involved is the most difficult part. So what advice do you have for something like that?
Well, I think when children are involved, there's another whole layer, right?
Yeah.
So I think it depends on a lot of different things and, like custody arrangements and things like that. But it's hard when you have children involved because you can't just cut those ties, right? So you have to be able to continue, if that's the plan, obviously, and that's something that you want to do, to have those children in your life. Obviously, if you can just cut ties, yes, there's times that you think about texting your ex, probably not a good idea. So just cutting those ties is the best. But when children are involved, I think you have to plan, once again, like kind of anticipate when we're all together, it's going to be hard. Yeah. What am I going to do? Maybe plan to, make the kids the center of attention. I always find like doing something to put the center of attention on something else instead of on that couple and now on that relationship is ideal. Do a fun activity so you don't have to like sit across the table and just stare at your ex type of thing. But think of it as distraction techniques. Like you want to be busy Because if you're not, those thoughts are just
Yeah.
going to start creeping in, and
Yeah.
they're not helpful. They're not going to get us anywhere good.
Yeah. And I think that's good as well. That's perfect because a lot of people, they don't know how to co-parent. Co-parent is hard
Yeah.
because you still have some feelings for the person, and then the person might be a great parent, though. It might be a great father, you might be a great wife, but the way you treat me
Yeah.
is wrong. And I think we have to set strong boundaries as well, and don't make love or have sex with your partner if you really want to let go,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
Because that's going to bring more unwanted feelings and distort your thinking and make you think that something's there, or somebody, right? The
Right.
man might think that nothing's there. I'm just, whatever it is. And then the woman might say, we're back, and then the child sees you guys laughing and playing, and now your son or daughter's
Mixed
confused,
messages.
mixed
Yeah.
messages, of course. So one of the things is that you have to set clear boundaries and expectations of where you want to go, and you have to communicate this effectively,
Yeah.
very clear, because people sometimes they have selective hearing. They only hear what they
It's
want
true.
to hear.
Right. Yes.
And that's just. So
Yeah.
my thing, what is some great advice, right? Dr. Rachel's best,
Yeah.
right? I mean, don't give us all your best.
I know, right? I have
You
so
don't give all
many.
your best, right? You got
Um,
to pay for that. But
yes.
but what is your best advice that you will give someone who have unhelpful thoughts, these negative thoughts, and they're going through a dark place, right?
Mm-hmm.
They really can't navigate through these thoughts. What piece of advice can you give them?
Yeah. So I definitely have a lot of thoughts coming up
Hmm.
to answer that question. But I think something to keep in mind also regarding what you were just saying with the boundaries
Yeah.
is that it can be hard to stick to those boundaries sometimes when you're in the moment and you're seeing like how your partner is,
Hmm.
acting around your kids. So I think what's important, and this can be generalized to anything, and to answer the question about my advice, is to remind yourself of the reason you made the decision that you made. So if you decided to leave your partner, right, remind yourself of why. Same thing. If you're
Yeah.
doing something, whatever you're doing, it's that
Hmm.
why that's going to keep us motivated to stay
Yeah.
on track.
Yeah.
So remind yourself, and I hate to say remind yourself of the bad, but
Hmm.
that's what you have to do in that situation if you really want to cut ties, or if you want to really be strong with those boundaries. And that's the same thing. We can now use that when we're talking about our thoughts. We then have to remind ourselves also of other experiences. So like if I were to say I'm never going to find love, think back to a time that you did find love.
Hmm.
Remind yourself that you are capable of finding love.
Hmm.
Also, boost yourself up, right? Like we need to feel self-worth. We need to feel
Hmm.
self-love in order to know that we're worthy of finding love. So remind yourself, and it might sound silly, it's a silly exercise, but it's so useful. Like make a list of your qualities.
Hmm.
Like make a list of everything that that you define yourself as,
Hmm.
or what you're good at. Because I think the more that we can remind ourselves of that, once again, we start believing it. So when we start believing it, we start acting like that.
Hmm.
Then I'm going to act like I'm worthy of love. And then it's going to be easier to
Hmm.
find love because I'm going to be putting myself out there and putting positive energy into the world.
Hmm. That's excellent. I think everybody should put an emoji, a clapping emoji for that, because that was really good advice. And just to piggyback on that list, guys, you have to do that list. That's your homework. I think that's your homework
Yes,
from Dr. Rachel today. If you guys want to grab a book, a pen, a paper, I think that's what you need to do. You need to really write down the qualities, what you love about yourself, what you like about yourself, and focus on the person that you were before the breakup, before the heartbreak, or
yes,
before the unhelpful thoughts, because you will realize how really beautiful and amazing you were before all that pain and all that mess. So you need to bring yourself back to that peaceful place, that beautiful
exactly.
place where you were number one. And I think that's exactly what Dr. Rachel just said. So that's your homework for today. I need you guys to do that. And when you do the homework, this is what I usually have people on live do, but it might be a lot. I don't know how, but it might be a lot. I don't know if you're ready for this,
I'm
but
ready.
I don't know if I should say it, because if I say it,
I
it's
know
gonna be
what
a
you're
lot.
going to say. I want you to do it. I know what you're going to say.
Guys, I want you to write down your qualities, right? All of your qualities, write it on a piece of paper, take a picture of it and DM it to us,
Yeah.
right? DM it to us. Take a picture and DM it to us. So that's your homework for tonight. So it's Tuesday night. We still have the week to conquer all these unhelpful thoughts. Do not go to Friday with the same thoughts you have tonight. Do not go all the way to Thursday with the same
Yes.
thoughts you have tonight. So I need you to take that picture, write down the qualities, send it to Dr. Rachel or myself, or you can just send it to Dr. Rachel. Um, we speak frequently, so we can probably go over the list at an appointed time, and we'll probably DM you, chat with you, voice record you, and help you through these thoughts. And I think that's at least we can do for you guys joining on the live tonight. So to go into it a little bit more, right? Because we didn't, short for time. Um, so, what are some helpful thoughts? We talked about the unhelpful thoughts. We talked about the bad, the ugly, the dirty thoughts. What about the good ones? What should we
Mm-hmm.
be thinking about more? I know you touched on it with the list, but let's just go a
Yeah,
little
yeah.
bit deeper. Yeah.
Well, I think, like I said, it kind of depends on what the unhelpful thought is. So we
Hmm.
can challenge it and then make it more helpful. So it doesn't need to be, once again, like super positive, but just
Hmm.
more helpful. So I find, a lot of people have unhelpful thoughts like I'm never going to be able to do this, or I'm a failure, or I'm not going to be able to succeed. So like saying something like I don't know, but I'm going to try, or
Mm.
so like it's just leaving it open. It's not
Hmm.
saying I'm a failure. It's not saying I'm never going to do this, but it has a more positive feel to it.
Yeah.
And once again, like if we just pause with that for a moment and say, okay, if we think of that unhelpful thought as I'm never going to find love, and
Hmm.
then we think of the more positive, more helpful thought as I'm going to try my best.
Hmm.
How does that feel? Like if I say I'm going to try my best, like it feels okay,
Yeah.
right? Like it's motivating. Like maybe
Yeah.
I'm going to feel excited to try. Maybe I'm going
Hmm.
to behave in a way that's going to work towards finding that love.
Yeah.
As opposed to I'm never going to find love, just shuts it right down.
Mm.
Like it is done.
Yeah. And I think that's one of the things too. We speak so negatively about ourselves. We don't even give a chance. We don't even give ourselves a chance to try to do better. What it's everything's, oh, I
Exactly.
want to, what if you do good? What if you achieve your goals? What if you become successful? Right? You
What
can't
if,
go into it.
right?
What if? Yeah.
Right.
Like a lot of people, our problems and our past trauma, it kind of embedded some kind of like self-defeat within us. And
Mm-hmm.
we need to, I always compare it to one of those peanuts, right? Those little the almonds or the peanuts with the chocolate around it.
Oh
I
yeah.
always compare it. I always say that the beautiful you, that person that you were meant to be, is that peanut in the middle. Everything around that is all the junk that you have to get rid of. In order for
Mm-hmm.
you to get to your true self, the core, the substance of who you are, you have to get rid of all that junk around you to get to that really delicious part. Right? I mean, don't
Mm-hmm.
get me wrong, the chocolate is delicious, but we're
I know. I
pretending
was
that the
gonna say,
chocolate
wait a
is
minute
not
there.
delicious.
Yeah.
I'll
Yeah.
choose a chocolate over the peanut any day. But uh, but we're just like that's the core of it. And you have to get back to the core of you.
Right.
Is it easy? No. Is it
Right.
difficult? Yes. But is it worth it? Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think we have to push through all these negative thoughts and really apply everything that Dr. Rachel just said, right? Go back to the live, read it again. I said read it again like it's a script. Listen to it again and really take some notes when you're by yourself. Everybody say they want to heal, but a lot of people don't. You say that you want a breakthrough, you say you want to get over this, you say you want to do better, but you really don't. The proof is in your actions.
Right.
The proof is in your actions. You can talk about it, right? Dr. Rachel, I'm sure before she got her PhD, before you, it was all a dream. You wanted to become a psychologist. You wanted to help
Right.
people, right? I'm sure you wasn't born with a PhD in the back pocket. No, absolutely not. You had to work for
Definitely
that.
not.
You had to work for it every single day,
Right.
just like you have to work through your unhelpful thoughts.
Right.
Matter of fact, let's do a quick. What are some unhelpful thoughts you had when you were going through your PhD,
Oh my
right?
gosh, it was so many years ago.
Hmm.
I don't even know if I remember. Maybe I just blocked it out.
Uh,
I mean, I'm sure I had a thought of like,
hmm.
I'm never gonna finish my dissertation,
Yeah.
or what if I don't get in to
Hmm.
the internship program? Or what if I don't pass
Yeah.
the license?
Yeah.
I mean, to get your license for psychology, you have to take this extensive exam that a lot of it we don't even learn in grad school. It's like you have to teach yourself.
Hmm.
So it's like, oh my God, like I'm never going to be able to learn all of this. That was
Yeah.
definitely a thought.
Yeah.
And you just, you do the best you can. You know, like
Yeah.
I don't know, like have I ever taken that exam before? No, I mean I took practice exams and I did fail some of them because
Yeah.
everybody does at the beginning.
Yeah.
But you know, like you examine that evidence. Like I've never
Yeah.
taken the exam before. Why do I think I'm going to fail? That's not helping me. I'm just going to
Yeah.
do my best. I'm just going to study harder, you know, and that's where that motivating factor comes in too.
Yeah.
Like, you know, if we want something, it's going to motivate us to do it
Hmm.
if we're thinking positively about it, not if we're thinking negative. Like if I
Yeah.
say I'm never going to pass, then I'm just going to lose motivation to even study. And then guess what? Then I'm going to fail.
Yeah. And
So
I think one of the main words that you said in there was failure. And I think that you owned your failure, but you didn't stay in your failure. And I think that's what people need to understand, especially with their unhelpful thoughts, is that it's okay to fail, but it's what you do after that fact. It's okay to fall, but it's what you do after. A lot of people fail and they believe that they're a failure. Some people
exactly.
fall and believe that they're the concrete, so they're supposed to
Yeah.
be there. I think
Yeah.
one of the goals that people need to understand is that it's okay to fall, it's okay to fail, it's okay to mess up, because during this journey, you're gonna mess up. I've messed up, you messed up, we all messed up. We're not perfect.
Right.
But when you really want something, you mess up and you keep going. You mess up with these unhelpful thoughts and you
Right.
try to develop more helpful thoughts. And when you know that you deserve this and this is what you want, and I'm sure that was your mindset,
Mm-hmm.
because you wouldn't be the person that you are today, right? Saving lives, helping people lives, and I think a lot of the stuff that psychologists do and people do is underrated, you know, because you guys went to school, you studied this. This is your life. You know the deeper aspect of things. You know the layers, the pulling back of the
Mm-hmm.
layers. And people think that, oh, this psychologist, they're perfect. No, take advice from them because they've failed and they learned and they can give
Mm-hmm.
you and show you the ropes. And I think that's one of the beauty of it is the failure part.
Yeah.
The
And
failure.
and
Yeah.
there's something, you know, I'm glad that you mentioned that because actually when we mess up or when we make mistakes, and I say
Hmm.
this to all my clients, this is one of those unhelpful thoughts. Many people right away, automatically, so automatic thought,
Yeah.
right away they say, I should have done XYZ
Hmm.
or I should do XYZ. Well,
Hmm.
that is an unhelpful thought. So thinking about that is not going to help us, but rather learning from that experience and saying what I always tell my clients
Hmm.
is, let's say the next time something like that happens, what are you going to do?
Hmm.
Because if we think about what I should have, could have, would have done, it's over and done with. It's out of
Yeah.
my control. It's living in the past and it's not moving forward.
Yeah.
But if we say, oh, well, the next time I take an exam and I don't do well, maybe it means I need to study a little more, you know, something like that. But it's
Hmm.
learning from those mistakes. And it's funny too that we mentioned failure because I actually, in a way, don't believe in the word failure
Hmm.
because I think everything is a learning experience and
Absolutely.
we really never fail.
Hmm.
It's just
We learn.
it didn't work out. You know,
Yeah.
and I think that's that tweak also
Yeah.
that like of course it takes work. I know whenever I say things like this, people message me like it's not so easy. I
Hmm.
know it's not so easy. It takes time. But like if we can tweak those thoughts, you know, I think of it almost like as screws in our brain, to be honest. Like we want to
Hmm.
loosen those screws to be a little more flexible. If
Yeah.
we can tweak those thoughts instead of thinking of things as a failure, but like, oh, what can I learn from this? What can I do differently next time? I made a mistake. I'm human. We all make mistakes. No
Yeah.
big deal. We brush it off and we move on.
Yeah.
If we hold on to that mistake, if we hold on to the I failed, I'm a failure, it just turns into this downward spiral and doesn't get us
Yeah.
anywhere.
Yeah. And I think that's the beautiful part of it is the way you change your mindset. And I think that's piece of like I was reading that comment, that question below, and I think that's the answer kind of to that question. So let's just go into some quick question and answer, but I want to start with
Mm-hmm.
the one at the bottom logically. You see it?
I see it now, yes.
Okay. So it says logically, I can understand good thought or the change thought, but my brain automatically goes to the bad thought and I don't necessarily believe the change thought. So what is your advice for that one?
And absolutely, I'm so glad
Hmm.
that you mentioned that
Yeah, that's
because
a good
that
one.
is exactly what happens. Our thoughts, or our brain rather,
Hmm.
automatically goes to that negative thought. That is common, that is normal, that is exactly what we call cognitive distortion or an automatic negative thought.
Hmm.
It takes time. Like I said, I wish I could do this, and like now you have positive thoughts.
Erase it.
Right.
Hmm.
But it doesn't happen that way. And if we think about it, these thoughts that we've been saying, they're thought patterns that we've been probably saying for years. So it's not going to go away so quickly. It takes time and practice. So the first thing you can do is identify it's unhelpful and then challenge it. Just
Hmm.
like anything else, the more you tell yourself something, the easier it will become to believe. But it
Hmm.
takes time. It is going to take lots and lots and lots of you like rewiring in a way, retraining your brain. That's what you're doing, retraining
Yeah.
your brain to have a new, healthy, automatic thought.
Yeah. And that's perfectly. I think it's the habits changing because one thing you said before is like you've been living these thoughts for decades, right? And then I'll be telling, I'm in a video a long time, and it said it's crazy how a woman will get into a relationship and try to change the man, right? And he's been like that for 30, 40 years, and you're trying to change him in a couple of months. No, that's who he is. That's who he believes he is,
Right.
and that's how your brain is. It takes time, repetition, consistently working on yourself, and you can't stop. And it goes back to failure. You are going to have a couple unhelpful thoughts,
Right.
but
But it
what
doesn't
you
mean
need
we
to
failed.
reckon exactly. It doesn't mean you
Right.
fail.
Right.
Is that you recognize and you acknowledged it. When you acknowledge it, you say to yourself, "Oh, wait, no, 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 not today, thought. Let me redirect this."
Right.
Right? And redirection is very important. And that's why in the middle, you said something, you said, we have to take note of our negative thoughts. So when you
Mm-hmm.
take note of your negative thoughts, excuse me, you know exactly where it's coming from because everything has a home, right? I think that's what people need to understand. Everything has a home. A
Right.
thought doesn't just pop up. I always ask people, what were you doing when you had that thought? What happened to you when you had that thought? It's either something happened to you physically,
Mm-hmm.
emotionally. What did you see? Did you see a restaurant that you used to be at?
Mm-hmm.
Those things trigger thoughts. When you write those things down and you stop taking that route and you take another route, you're going to see how your mind is like, hey, I'm used to this one. Let me go to this one. And you're going to see how your thoughts starts to reduce, not eliminate, reduce.
Right.
Right. So it's not
Right.
automatically going to happen.
Yeah.
So that was a good one. Let me go
Yeah.
into the question box to see.
And just to follow up with that real quick, I do want to
Hmm.
say to also remember that our thoughts are just thoughts. So sometimes just identifying them and then
Hmm.
saying, oh, that was just an unhelpful thought, and kind of like imagining putting it in a box on the side and
Hmm.
moving on. Like
Yeah.
sometimes we don't need to do anything with them. Just, oh, it's a thought. I'm going to put it over here and I'm going to
Hmm.
go on with my day.
Yeah.
So just a little reminder about that
Yeah.
too.
Yeah. No, because some people think that thoughts are facts, just like they think that feelings are facts. They're not facts.
Exactly.
They're not facts.
Right.
So, how do you know when you're not damaged from a past relationship anymore?
I want to say that question's for you,
Oh, okay. Um,
right?
you, yes, but you're the guest, and I say ladies first, but since you want me to do it, I'll do it.
Yes.
Yeah, I'll say one thing that I always tell people is when you don't have an emotional reaction to your ex's name, their presence, you know what they're doing is none of your business anymore, and you're living your life like cautious free. Like you're not really thinking about them. Um, when you don't have an emotional reaction to the pain anymore. See, a lot of people they still have an emotional reaction. They don't want to see them, but I'm over them. But would you talk to them? No, you still have an emotional connection to them, right? Or hey, my ex is going to be at this concert. Do you want to go? I'm over that person. So you want to go? No, I just want to see them. You still have an emotional reaction. So the damage has to do with have you forgiven yourself? Have you forgave them? You know, have you changed the way you view yourself? Maybe the damage is not with what they caused, but what you allow. So how are you dealing with your issues? So I would say a lot of it has to do with I mean you could touch on it as well, but just that emotional reaction when there's still yeah.
Yeah, and I would agree with that. I think that was great. And I think the emotional piece is very important. And I would
Hmm.
even add then to think about our thoughts. Like
Yeah,
what thought comes to mind when you hear that person's name?
yeah.
Um,
What's
you
wrong
know,
with
and
me? Thoughts, very unhelpful thoughts. Why didn't I
that's
think
okay.
about that?
That was
Marketing.
my job to
Yeah,
remind you of that.
yeah,
That's all right.
yeah. But yeah, that was yeah. What thoughts come in your mind to make you think that? Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, yeah. I've made some wrong decisions in choosing partners. Is that a negative thought or taking responsibility? That's you because it has thought in it.
um, so, okay, so it says I've made wrong decisions in choosing partners. Is that a negative thought? So it could be, right? So I would say, let's think about that for a moment. If I were to say to myself, I've made wrong decisions in choosing partners, how does that make me feel?
Mhm.
And I don't know if that's necessarily a thought or maybe, I mean, it's kind of a thought, but it's also could be a fact, right? It could be both, I would say. It kind of depends on your situation and your like history with choosing partners. But I would just stop it there and say, is this a helpful statement?
Yeah,
I've made wrong decisions in choosing partners. And if you think you have made wrong decisions, I would
mhm.
actually just say, what worked and what didn't work? Like,
Yeah,
what was wrong? Like, what was the
yeah,
wrong decision? Like, what does that even mean?
yeah,
And then challenge that thought, but then also ask, well, how can I do it differently next time?
yeah,
Maybe it's not making the right or wrong decision. It's really just about knowing yourself and
yeah,
maybe what you're looking for in a partner.
yeah, yeah. And the thing about it too, because those are two different, I think, two different statements and questions there,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because it's a little confusing. We're going to stay on. I have made wrong decisions in choosing a partner because it's not really a thought, right? Or taking responsibility. So what I would say, to piggyback what you say, is like you said something about making a list and figuring out. I will also say you have to what was it? Just lost my thought. You have to come back to thoughts. These thoughts. I will also say, where are you meeting these people? How are you meeting them?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because if it's in the same place, then there's your answer, right?
Right.
If it's in the same club or at work, that there's your answer. If
Mm-hmm.
it's people in it, because you'll realize there's a pattern sometimes to pain, right? There's always a pattern to pain, and there's always a pattern to purpose. So the pattern to pain is where are you meeting them? How are you meeting them? Is it on Facebook? Is it on Instagram? How long are you taking to get into a relationship? Are you jumping too fast? Or are you even in a position to receive or give love? Or are you asking the right questions? Because I always tell people you are in control of your love life. As much as you want the relationship to work, I still want you to be the right person for me. Because if we're not the right person for each other, then it's not going to work, right? I want to be happy as much as you want to be happy, but I want to make sure that you're right for me. So it's like a
Mm-hmm.
resume. You better come correct or you're not going to be hired.
I'm
So,
I'm so
mhm,
glad you said that because I say that often to my clients and the
yeah,
same thing about like job interviews. I tell people you may not want the job. Like it may
yeah,
not be a good fit. That you need to
hmm,
go in to it with an open mind and ask yourself,
hmm,
is this what you want? So
yeah,
just because the person likes you or doesn't like you doesn't mean it's the right person for you or doesn't mean
yeah,
it's the right job for you.
yeah. So, ladies and gentlemen, it's the last question that we're going to ask for the day. If you have any more questions or concerns, or you just want to talk to Dr. Rachel or I, you can follow Dr. Rachel, of course. She's very good to talk to, very nice, very sweet. So you
Thank
can
you.
definitely follow her right now and DM her for any questions or anything that you would like. Last question. How can one communicate with an ex when they're being difficult to communicate with?
So actually, my answer would be a question
Mine's
of,
too.
yeah, I feel
Hmm.
like we're on the same page here. Of what is the purpose or
That's
why
it.
are you
Yep.
even choosing to communicate with your ex? Right. So I think that first needs to be answered.
Yeah, that's it. We don't have an answer until you answer that
Right.
because
Right. Because
you
it
have
may
to
not be
have a reason.
useful. Right. Like
Yeah.
why? Like is it if you need to because there's kids involved or something, that's one
Yeah.
thing. But I think that's something we can keep in mind when we're talking about our actions. Like,
Hmm.
what purpose is this serving? Is it serving a good purpose for me to talk to my ex?
Hmm.
Probably not. Maybe, depending on the situation.
Yeah.
But if it's not, then don't.
Yeah. And it's simple. If it doesn't build you, make you into a better person, help you emotionally, physically, or mentally, it's not worth having. So, like you said, it has to have purpose behind something, right? It has to have purpose. I think Dr. Rachel said it best to end us off for the night, with purpose. You have to have a purpose for this. Thank you so much for that question. Thank you, Dr. Rachel, for really being here tonight and really, shedding light on a lot of unhelpful thoughts. We've been through so much. You gave us your knowledge, your wisdom on how to navigate through these unhelpful thoughts, and also how to generate helpful thoughts. And you gave some examples as well. We did a
Mm-hmm.
role play, which was amazing. For those who missed the live, go back, check it out, watch the role play where I was asking questions. Dr. Rachel was giving her expert advice, and it was really, really beneficial. I've seen a lot of great comments, which means we were doing a good job. We
Awesome.
hope that we helped a lot of people on this live, and you guys can watch it back. I'm going to share this live and give it to Dr. Rachel as well so she can have um, this live so she can share it on her platforms,
Mm-hmm.
Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, wherever she will like. So, Dr. Rachel, thank you very much. And it was a session. It was a session. You guys got a free hour
Yes.
session. So, thank you guys for your time because you guys were really amazing. So, Dr. Rachel, where can they find you? They want to get anything from you. How can they find you?
Yes, and thank you so much for
Mhm.
having me. This
You're
was so
welcome.
great. So people know how to find me on Instagram, of course. And then I'm on Twitter, which is actually Ask Dr. Rachel. And also Facebook, which is Dr. Rachel NYC as well. Pretty easy to remember. My website is also drrachelnyc.com. But please, just if you have any questions, if you want to follow me, if you want to follow up with anything, just
Mhm.
DM me since everybody has my Instagram.
Yep.
I always just like to remind people that Instagram is not therapy,
Mhm.
but I'm more than happy to point people in the right direction, provide resources, even referrals if necessary. But
Mhm.
I love talking to people. So DM me and I'll answer your questions as much as I can.
Yep. And one thing I want to say about, like you said it, you said it just now, Instagram is not therapy. That's true, right? We both believe that information changes situations,
Yes.
but it's always good to reach out to the person of the post that you like because there's purpose behind that post that they wrote. They wrote it for a reason, and they may know something that you don't know, I don't know, or whatever that they don't know. So definitely, if you go on her page, which not if you go on the page, when you go on the page, right? Because I want you guys to follow her now, jump out, get off, come back to the live after. I want you to understand that you can reach out. You can reach out. Don't be shy. Don't be afraid. Don't think that your issues are nobody wants to hear about your issues. It's too hard. It's too tough. You might have insecurities. You might have ego. You might think that if you're a guy and you're on here and you're listening because there's up to at least 70 people back and forth or more in here, and everybody wasn't talking, which means some people are still listening, but you're not talking. Don't be afraid to reach out. Don't block your blessing. Reach out to Dr. Rachel. She has all the information, and you were on this live for a reason. You were not here by chance. You were here for a reason. Reach out to her right now and just say hi, even if you have nothing to say. All
Yeah.
right?
And I'll say
Yeah,
hi back.
exactly. So
Yes.
again, thank you for your time. I'm going to save
Thank
this
you.
live. We had a great time,
Yes. It was
and
awesome.
yeah, we'll talk after this, of
Thank
course.
you.
You're
Have
welcome.
a good
Take care.
night. See everybody
Good night,
soon.
everyone.
Bye.